Welcome to Nerd Social. I'm Nathan.
I'm Jhon.
And I'm Colin.
We're going to review the latest episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. If you missed our review from last week, if you're watching us live, we reviewed it on Facebook. We will be back there next week. And we are a little behind on some of the videos, but so we'll also post an enhanced version of that video soon as well. So we're going to give our general impressions of the episode and then jump right into spoiler talk. So, Colin, do you want to kick it off? What did you think of the episode?
Sure. I think that definitely major callbacks to Captain America Civil War. So there was a lot of characters that you saw from Civil War that came back into the sphere and basically kind of providing updates as to what they were doing. So, you've seen in the previews Zemo. So Zemo was in the last episode. And also you get to see another character from Civil War. I'm not going to spoil it at this moment, but definitely some callbacks to that. And then also a couple of more revealing topics as to some theory crafting that's involved, but also there's some other interesting characters that appeared during the episode. So overall, some reveals, but also some platforms in which you can theory craft as to what's going to happen in the next 3 episodes.
Yeah, we definitely got to see some of the characters from I'm sorry, I keep saying Winter Soldier. Civil War. Civil War. And a welcome sight for a lot of them. I really like the characters we got to see. This episode felt a little bit like, I guess it's because it's more of a middle episode. So the plot is moving forward. We got to see a little bit more backstory in the villain of the show so far. And in addition, I got a lot of vibes of John Wick in this particular episode as well, including the location, Madripoor, where it was all taking place. I think they must have a deal with Madripoor because they kept saying Madripoor 5, 6, 7, 8 different times, like it was some commercial for Madripoor. But beautiful city, if that's what exactly it looks like. But I enjoyed the episode.
Yeah, I had to look this up. I thought Madripoor was actually a made-up city. I didn't think it was a real island state. I thought it was made up for the X-Men comics. That's the only place I've seen it. But it's possible that it's real. I don't know. I don't know. A lot of stuff in Marvel comics are real locations, and they from time and again make up things like Sokovia. So I don't know. I think I like the episode. I don't know that I liked it as much as the previous episode, probably because of some characterizations of some characters, like how they were written. And it's possible that I'm not liking it now because there's another shooter drop later on, and it's difficult to talk about what I'm talking about specifically without spoilers. But I generally like the episode. I like that it mostly focused on Sam and Bucky and Zemo. So yeah, I have more thoughts, but we have to get into spoilers for me to flesh out exactly the thoughts that I have. So without further ado, spoilers ahead. This is your first and last spoiler warning. So what I want to start with is the beginning of the episode. In Berlin, we start the episode somewhere else, and I'll get to John Walker and Lemar, their mission later on. But starting the Zemo, the most of the guts of this episode is Zemo, Bucky, and Sam, and we start in Berlin and with the visit to Zemo's jail cell. So what did you guys think of the beginning setup for that?
So Zemo is bad Batman. He has his own Alfred, his own bat plane or corporate jet. Either that or he's Trump. I don't know. I was trying to figure out. Holy crap! I didn't know all this about him. It was cool to see him in his outfit. That was immediately. I was like, hey, that's his comic book outfit. And of course we saw him put it on his hood. And but Daniel Brühl's a great actor. I love seeing him, and obviously they were finding a way to get him to interact with our main characters there, Sam and Bucky. So The setup was very funny. I admit I was cracking up the whole time where Bucky's telling the story of, hey, what if? And Sam is kind of figuring out, hey, wait a minute, you're so casual about this. Why? Because meanwhile, Bucky already set everything up, his whole breakout and all that. So I like the premise, how they set it up. And of course, he shows up and he joins the team right away. And that's how we get the rest of the episode. So
yeah,
Berlin setup, breakout. A little too easy, but still, I mean, for a guy who's a supervillain, he sure got out of there very easily. And, but, it's a comic book TV show, so.
Yeah, I had some issues with that and some other things with these scenes, but Colin, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that was a little too convenient for him to get out of jail that easily. I mean, he could have done it a number of times before. What is he waiting for the right moment for like some guy to show up? So that was a little bit unbelievable to me. The other thing was the financial resources. I'm like, so did they like basically freeze his assets or he's just like his butler's just like sitting there like waiting for him like, oh, when is he gonna get out of jail? When is he gonna get out of jail? So it was like a little bit convenient plot device for him to be like have resources and him flying all over the place with a private jet. So I think that definitely I would have liked a little bit more explanation about that, why his assets weren't frozen. And also a little bit of a plot hole in some ways because you really didn't get a sense that he had wealth when he was in Sokovia. I mean, he was working for Sokovian intelligence back during Civil War. So why would he be some rich, wealthy individual unless he had a trust fund and he had a trust fund and his father got killed and his family got killed and then maybe the money passed down to him. But then choosing a profession like Kill Squad, it's like, whoa, that's kind of a little bit different. I mean, was he like Prince Harry or something like that? So
he's a baron.
Yeah, he's a baron. So I didn't get the trajectory of where he was before, and also because Sokovia is a pretty poor, unstable country. Was he part of the corrupt state, and why he amassed his wealth was because of that. So a little bit more explanation or backstory about how he kind of got to where he was, I think, would have helped a little.
Yeah, I mean, so there definitely is. The writers of this show took some licenses with the character that was created in Civil War. I mean, just going backwards, what we know from Civil War, and actually I watched a scene from Civil War when Tony was in the plane and Friday figured this out. We know that he was a colonel in a death squad, and that's it. Now, all the stuff about his family, Friday didn't mention. So it's possible that he's a baron and Friday didn't mention it because it wasn't pertinent to understanding why he would have done what he did or his skills. So you can so if you're a good writer, you can write around that a little bit. Also, people who are royal sometimes join the military because they like playing soldier. I think both Harry and William are part of either the Navy or whatever they or Air Force. I think one of them was like flew jets or something like that. So it's possible. I mean, if you get lower down from the like Prince, maybe they let you do more dangerous stuff because he's a baron. So I guess you can argue those things away. I don't know if I can argue away Bucky so easily, like being okay with breaking him out. And Sam put up a little bit of a fight, but I feel like he should have put up more of a fight with. He was already out at this point. I think that they wrote it well enough that Sam wouldn't have been part of the breakout. But after he knew that it happened, I think he was a little okay with it a little bit quicker than I would expect. I understand that he kept to keep the show rolling, and you want Zemo not in a cell because it's more interesting if he's not in a cell.
Of course.
Otherwise, it's like I don't know, Silence of the Lambs, where you just keep visiting Zemo in jail. So yeah, that was a little weird to me.
If anything, it might establish that, maybe he does trust Bucky like he did Cap. Maybe that's what they're trying to say.
maybe. But yeah, like you guys said, the prison break was a little quick as well. He couldn't get given all his resources, the only person he could use to get out was Bucky. He couldn't. I go back and forth on this because even though he was royalty, he did kill a king, so maybe the Wakandan resources made sure he didn't get access to his to people.
Mm-hmm.
But why was he be able to access his resources so easily when he got out? So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you mentioned Silence of the Lambs, so I definitely felt that Zemo was like that type of Hannibal Lecter character, and at the same time, it was almost like I commented when I was watching to my brother. I said, keep your friends close and enemies closer. The Godfather Part 2 quote. So it's like, yeah, they're really leaning in on that type of keeping your enemies closer than your friends. So really interesting that plot point.
The other thing is that as soon as he saw Bucky, he started saying the words. I mean, I didn't know it was. I know it wasn't going to work, but I was like, this jerk. As soon as he sees him, he's going to try to.
He's got to try. That's right. He's got to try.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, from there they go on to they go on to Madripoor, as you mentioned, Jhon. And there's a little bit of.
And you're right. Madripoor is a Marvel city. You're absolutely right.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I mean. They sometimes make up. I mean, they don't make up as many cities as DC, but sometimes they do make up things. So they go to Madripoor. They're on his private plane, which apparently. Mm-hmm. So they put some things in there like the family has wealth, but they're also falling on hard times because apparently like the refrigerator isn't being maintained. That guy is just basically waiting for him or whatever. So they were able to get. So they go to Madripoor and they have this interesting exchange with about the book, which we said in our first review that it's very similar to Steve's book. Apparently, it is Steve's book. I guess Steve just gave it to him and he put more things in the book. So that's an interesting detail.
Yeah, definitely was very interesting. There was that it was a continuation, and it's almost kind of a little weird too. It's like you're putting things on the list of things that he wanted to catch up on pop culture wise, but then what happens is that it turned into almost like a book of forgiveness. Like, please forgive me for all the wrongs that I've done. So it's kind of very. I know what the premise is like you're putting it on the list because you want to it's almost like a task in some ways, but at the same time it's like when you read deeper in the context, it's like that's kind of strange way of putting it in the same book as like pop culture references to, asking for forgiveness to the people that you wronged. So yeah, I just found that a little weird.
I mean, if it's the book of things to catch up on, I guess these are the things that he needs to catch up on, or these are the things.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
It did make him catch up on Marvin Gaye again, or
that's true.
A second reference to Marvin Gaye. So
yeah, that whole exchange with Zemo's whole comportment, they definitely made him act more royal than they did in Winter. Now I'm saying Winter Soldier.
Now you're saying it.
than they did in Civil War. He just seemed like a desperate man who he seemed like a desperate man who was hurting throughout the entire movie. Now he has this like royal comportment. He's kind of like strutting around a little bit. So the things that he says to Sam here on the plane about Marvin Gaye, it's like quintessential African American experience. And it's sad. It's like he's out of line, but he's right. That was an interesting exchange.
Zemo's woke moment.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, then they actually land, and he says the other thing about the only American would think that a fashion-forward black man would be a pimp. He has interesting. He has an interesting idea of America, and also I guess African Americans. It seems like he has like a minor in African American studies or something like that. He seems like throwing out stuff. He seems to be studying Americans very intently. So that character, actually, Smiling Tiger, is a character in Marvel Comics, but it doesn't.
I figured it had to be.
he's like a Cambodian half tiger humanoid thing. So they definitely changed the character for Marvel. So he doesn't look like a human in Marvel. So the once they land in Madripoor, they go to Shelby's bar. And there's lots of interesting things that happen there. I have a couple of things that I want to touch on, but what did you guys think of that whole part of the episode?
That's the bar that I thought gave off a lot of John Wick vibes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the world of John Wick, of assassins and these people, and they all have a code, and they're all there. They all know what's up. They're all in on it, and so forth. That's what it came off to me, especially when they were trying to get out of there as well. And then everybody's after it. Everyone's got the contract show up.
Yeah.
They go after them. So I was like, John Wick. They stole this from John Wick. You know? But it was cool to see that little world that they got into, the underground, or whatever you want to call it. And that whole city reminded me of what is it, Macau in Malaysia. That's what. It seemed to look like that from afar. So, but yeah, it was pretty cool seeing the seedy underworld of assassins or former pirate city or whatever the heck that was, and what went down. And it's funny that I guess Baron still had all those connections, and so we're just getting like one little set to another set to get them moving along and to advance the plot. And so they're just world travelers now, and going from city to city.
Right.
It also reminded me a little bit of what you talked about in Cyberpunk. So I mean, there's some elements of that as well. So you can check out our Cyberpunk video about that, about John's analysis on that. But also what was interesting in the bar was the snake. That was really interesting. About was it a gallbladder or something like that, or I don't.
It was some sort of gland, and I thought it was maybe his the poisonous gland. So he was like drinking the poisonous glands from the snake, which yeah.
Yeah,
Colin, you're right about the Cyberpunk reference. One of my kids said, "Hey, that looks just like Cyberpunk, the game you play." Everything about it looked like it, including the way the people looked, the whole aesthetic.
Although I think this is set in Asia, right? At Madripoor is supposed to be like this fake city in Asia. So
yeah, but it really did look like they took a whole scene from the game, so it looked pretty cool.
Cool.
Also,
it really looked like they took a whole scene from the game, so it looked pretty cool.
Also, I was wondering if the snake was CGI. It probably was. I don't know. That would have been very interesting if it was not.
I mean, it looked dead. And it was probably a prop. I mean, that'd probably be the easiest way to do that is with a prop. I don't think you'd need to do CGI for that. They have enough money to do good props that look convincing. I guess they could do CGI for that, but I don't think I think it would be cheaper to do a decent prop.
I see.
Yeah. The other thing that I thought was pretty cool, and also funny. So like Zemo and they go into this bar with this front, and Zemo is acting like Bucky is on a leash, and he has Bucky go Winter Soldier mode. So you actually get to see him attacking in a very like methodical way. So it's like, that wasn't buried very deep, was it? Yeah, they actually play the Winter Soldier music when he did that. They also play the Zemo music in his jail cell at the beginning of the episode. They definitely have those motifs. So there's a pretty cool scene, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah. Then we actually meet Selby, and then she dies. But before that, the call with Sarah. What did you think of Sam's attempt to play like hard gangster or hard or mercenary?
He was terrible.
Yeah.
Just absolutely terrible.
could-
I mean, so many tells that he gave off. It was so obvious. Even at the bar, he was so bad at it. And I don't know what world he thought that he could get, I don't know, tip off Sarah to follow along or just, go along with it. Obviously, he failed miserably.
Yeah.
And, he just risks it all. So he sucks.
Yeah, you could tell that. Yeah, he was in the Air Force, not in the military, not in intelligence. He was in a spy. He was definitely an Air Force person.
I know, but you would have thought that when he went underground with Cap for a while there before you got to the Avengers Infinity War that he would have learned a thing or two.
Probably,
maybe
should have learned a thing or two.
I mean, but maybe with a little bit, maybe with a little bit more preparation. I mean, he didn't know that was the persona he was supposed to be taking on. He got like 10 minutes notice. If you think that the walk or the drive from Lower Madripoor from that bridge is maybe 10 minutes, he had 10 minutes notice to like familiarize himself with this person. So.
Well, he was offered, at the end of Winter Soldier, I remember that Nick Fury offered him to be on his team, and he's like, no, I'm a soldier more than a spy. So, he had his chance. He had a chance to be a spy, but he turned it down. And when it ended up following Cap with his with trying to find Bucky between Captain America, Winter Soldier, and Civil War. So, it's very interesting to kind of to see some of those callbacks from the previous movies.
You remember that movie far better than I do. I don't even remember him offering him a place in S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh, I think because I saw it like about a month ago. That's why, and also because of the meme that he had with the tombstone. Connecting back to one of Samuel Jackson's favorite not one of his more famous movies. So it was really interesting to see that callback.
Okay. So, as I said, Shelby dies. I'm not sure from the shot who shot Shelby, because I don't think I don't think it's Sharon.
No,
because
I
Sharon
thought it was Sharon.
Sharon shows up later.
Yeah,
when they were getting chased.
I thought it was, but it might not have been. They still probably a mystery person, I would say.
Yeah, and it seems like they were
power broker.
It seems like they were definitely set up there, and because that John Wick text message went out immediately. It seems like they were definitely set up there. And then we see Sharon, as I mentioned. She comes to the rescue and actually gets them out of that situation. So that brings us to Sharon's place, and I have a lot of thoughts about the stuff that's happening at Sharon's place, but I want to hear what you guys think about Sharon's introduction.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I really think it's all set up. I think that the there's a scene later on that kind of like puts everything in a doubt, like her whole story. So I think that it's just, is she still SCIA? Maybe. I mean, I just feel as though it was all kind of like a front to, because of that scene that's like towards the end of this episode. So we don't really know what's going on with her. Maybe that she was traumatized from the snap, like we talked about in previous. I think Jhon, you mentioned about it in previous episodes, where she. What happened to her during that time? Did she feel kind of jaded because she was saving their asses because of what happened in Civil War, because of that? Or is that just a kind of like a front that she has, and she's still working for the CIA in a deep undercover type of thing? So I don't know what to make of her right now.
Can we talk theory right now?
I mean, we could. So like, let's just talk about our general impressions right now, and then we can talk theories.
Okay.
But
yeah, so she, I definitely want to see her again, and she did not disappoint, especially kicking ass and just taking names later. She took out basically everybody on the perimeter, right?
Yeah.
Every single one of them, like a SHIELD agent that she is. So it was really cool seeing her fight scenes, and she's brutal. She's absolutely brutal. But the stuff that she's doing, I guess she's now part of the underworld. She's got to make a living somehow, and she likes expensive stuff. And that's where I'm going to stop, because I have some theory about that.
Yeah, so I'm gonna just say what I felt in the moment. I mean, I have some theories as well based upon what you said, Colin. The scene later on, at the end of the scene with Dr. Nagel, but like while I was watching this, so I watched this through this afternoon, and then when I was nearly at the end, my wife came home and she made me rewind it to the beginning because she wanted to see it. No. And when I watched it the first time, I was super annoyed. It's like, this doesn't make any sense whatsoever. What are they writing for this woman? She not only was like a CIA agent. She was Peggy Carter's niece. She definitely was a big Cap fan. All this stuff that she's saying about, like, I don't believe in the heroes. It doesn't seem like anything that she would actually say. It also doesn't make any sense. When my wife watched it through with me, she made me pause the television to actually talk it through. She's like, "There's no way that she didn't get a pardon." She's like, "Cap was on Earth for 5 years. She didn't reach out to Cap. Bucky has a pardon. She doesn't have a pardon. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever."
That's a good point she makes.
Very good point.
All this made no sense whatsoever to me, and the fact that she was so bitter. The fact that she was so bitter didn't make any sense to me either. So that whole,
Cap really did forget about her.
I suspect.
Oh boy!
I suspect, like you guys, that something else is happening, and what we can get to that after we get to that scene at the end. But like it annoyed me as I was watching it, because it seemed out of character for who we established her to be. So speaking of the next scene, after Sharon's place, they have a weird rave party, and she gets some information about Nagel, and then they go to Dr. Nagel's lab, which seemed to be in a shipyard in containers. So this was an interesting back and forth in his lab. What do you guys make of? I guess you can not just inside of his lab, but the aftermath after his lab as well. What do you make of that entire section?
Pretty cool hideout, and at the same time, he dropped some key bits of information that it explains how, I guess, they never heard of him or the things that he was doing until he came back after the blip. So that part was conveniently explained. Although you're right, Nathan, your wife's right. Well, what the heck was going on the whole time when Cap was still there on Earth and just completely forgot about? So there definitely has to be other story to that. And then he's promptly taken out, and I'm still trying to figure out why Zemo did that. Obviously, he's got his own little thing going on, his own plan or incentive to do that, right?
Well, that made sense to me. That's one of the things that didn't make that. I'm not sure why they weren't watching Zemo, because they know who he is. That didn't make sense. That didn't make sense to me. I understand they were kind of focused on him, trying to get information from him. But of the four people in that room, Zemo's the most dangerous. You need to always keep your eye on him.
True.
So I don't understand why they let him find a gun to do that. I think Zemo shot him because he got the information that he needed, that there were only 20 vials, and the next piece of information that he got is what Bucky asked if there were any vials in the lab, and he said no. Once he got that information, he wanted to kill the source, because after he's dead, no one else can make any more. So that's why he killed him.
Gotcha.
Makes sense. Yeah, I think that definitely there's a shock value to him, like, immediately dying because of it. But again, like you explained, Nathan, it's definitely there's a rationale behind it. There's a motivation behind it already, and it made sense as to why he should die. Very similar to what happens to almost as though the super soldier serum invites death in many ways because of the high value of it. So I think it definitely made sense, and it makes me wonder as to who is the people that are pulling his strings as well, because he definitely is not the guy. And also, again, like you said, Jhon, there was a very convenient plot device that said, I disappeared for 5 years and I came back because of, I turned to dust. So it definitely helped to kind of fill in a lot of the gaps as to why this research was not picked up, and the explanation that he gave, how it gets incorporated into someone. It's not building muscle anymore. It's just kind of like almost like optimal type of doesn't really change you in many ways, but you still have that superhuman strength and almost all the benefits of the serum. So I really think that was definitely a really good nugget that they put into the story itself. So I really appreciate the writers doing that.
Yeah, he definitely had a good exposition dump, but it was an exposition dump that made sense within the context of what was happening, because they were basically had a gun to his head saying, "Do exposition, do exposition." So within that context, it made sense that he was just spilling his guts.
I'm sure he was.
So yeah, that we get that. Like you said, Colin, that it doesn't change your body, the new serum, and apparently you don't need mechanical parts, because
how convenient.
Sam keeps making fun of Bucky, saying that he's like half robot brain, but I guess there are other mechanical parts inside of him that we can't see besides the arm that were necessary for him to tolerate the serum, because the serum that they have is like kind of a knockoff version. Not the version that Erskine had. So I guess that's new information for me. I thought he was just making fun of Bucky about the mechanical brains, but I guess he does have some mechanical parts inside of him as well. So that's an interesting information I was, at least if they explained that before, it wasn't clear to me before. So yeah.
But that's also but that makes sense, because it also kind of tells you why Hydra had to say those key words to him while he was in, provide the mission report and all like that. That makes a lot more sense if he had some type of cybernetic implants or anything like that in his head. So
yeah,
totally makes sense that way.
Yeah. So he gets killed. The mercenaries, the John Wick mercenaries or assassins come for them, because they still have a bounty for Shelby's death. Outside, Sharon's kicking butt and also killing people, but she's a spy, so I'm gonna let that go. It's weird that she's killing people outside and then she's shocked that the doctor is dead inside. That's a little weird. She's like, "What did you do?" It's like, the thing you did outside to like 5 people. You killed 5 people outside.
Yeah. Stylishly too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, her scenes were good. And I don't think she's gonna. She's. This is the last we'll see of her, even though we're leaving Madripoor, just because of how the scene ended. But the back and forth between Bucky and Sam, I think it was funnier in the trailer than it was in the actual episode. I went left and you went right. It's the same as in any action movie. The stuff with Zemo though was interesting to me. It was very cool to me. Hopefully we'll see him with the mask again later on. Apparently that's when he's going in his Zemo mode, just like Winter Soldier mode. He has to put on the mask, I guess.
Well, it has to be a good excuse to put it on, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It looked cool. He looked very comic book accurate, so I like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So now we can talk about what theories you might have about Sharon, because like I said, she drives off with her driver, who looks like
she has a driver.
Yeah.
But
I mean, she's if she would have a driver, I assume her driver brought them there, right? Because she's fencing all this art, so she would have money, right?
I guess. So I don't know. Maybe I'm off on this, but is she the power broker? I mean, I have to start to question that. So maybe she did have Selby shot, and maybe she is orchestrating some of this stuff. Maybe she got into that.
Ooh, that's a
power
hot
broker?
take right there.
Yeah, I mean, is she the power broker, or is she faking? Like, I mean, is she installed there? Like you said, maybe she's still on a mission that nobody knows about, and she has to play the bad guy of the area to, I guess, stay connected to all this stuff. I don't know, but either way, is she the power broker?
I was going in the opposite direction, like redeeming the choices that they made, because, like I said, this doesn't make any sense. She would have gotten a pardon. her aunt basically created a world policing force. I don't understand how she would go so far left off the grid of what right is. I understand that what right is depends on who's in power, and but I think that I don't know. It's possible if they do that, they have to explain it. They have to explain that why she's the power broker. And the thing is though, I don't think she can be the power broker unless she killed the previous power broker, because Zemo's been in jail before the blip, right? Since before the blip, and he's talking about people that he knew before the blip, right? And she wasn't running from the law before the blip, right? She wasn't running for the law until after Civil War. So Zemo's talking about people even like 2 years before the blip, because it was like he's talking about people that he knew before he was locked up. And Sharon was part of the CIA before he was locked up. So he said that he never met the power broker, but he only heard of the power broker. So unless F Sharon is the power broker, she killed the previous one.
Yeah. So maybe she's pretending, and I don't know. She is CIA.
She is CIA double agent. Jhon, it could be, you could be correct. I mean, she could be playing both sides, or it could, again, she could be doing it out of good, that she is playing a bad person right now, So that could be entirely possible in many ways that we've seen spy movies before. I think that I think that she's definitely CIA still. I think that she's not telling the whole story to Sam and kind of like basically hook, line, and sinker. I think Bucky is more of kind of a little bit dubious as to like a little bit more dubious in the way that he interacted or sees Sharon, I think. So I think that for him, he's a little bit more skeptical, whereas Sam is like, oh my gosh, she was wronged, and she was, I will definitely try to get you pardoned and things like that. So
I don't know. I agreed with Bucky when he said, she's terrible now. She's terrible now. How did she get so terrible? I mean, I understand if you're running away from the law and you can't get I don't know. It makes no sense to me that in the 2 years that they were running, that they weren't able to connect with Sharon, because the whole airport fight wouldn't have happened without her helping them out, right? They didn't check in on Sharon at all, and Captain Steve, the 5 years he didn't check in on Sharon. I mean, because it seems like she didn't get blipped away. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me that
sounds like a Sharon Carter series, and it should be in order to explain all of that.
Or they'll just explain it during this show. I think they need to explain it during the show. But we'll see her again, because the way they bookended her interaction with them, the way that she showed up magically in the alley, and she happened to be in the low city, even though she has a place in the high city, was also suspect, because the clientele that she deals with are people that can buy priceless works of art, not like the scummy people that are in the low city. So why would she be down? Why would she be down in the low city? And then, of course, the stuff that she says to the driver about having to go through several things. There's several things that she needs to talk to her about. There definitely is another penny to drop, another shoe to drop with Sharon, that hopefully explains this aberrant behavior. And I hope it isn't that she's the power broker.
Might be.
But
I was actually thinking the power broker, could be another person that could be playing both sides. There has been some stuff in the past where we're talking about people playing both sides. Just as an example, Obadiah Stane, playing both sides of the war that they were going on by selling weapons on both sides. So it could be that Thunderbolt Ross may have a role in this, playing both sides. So there has been some rumblings in the internet about how the new Black Widow might be involved here. So new Black Widow, and then you saw in the trailer, Thunderbolt Ross was a big piece of that as well. So that could be, he could be the power broker, seeing that he's always been interested in the super soldier serum in the past. So he could be the guy who's pulling the strings. Another one could be Norman Osborn, but I don't know how they're going to be able to borrow that from Sony, because that may be a little bit far-fetched because of the rights to Sony and things like that.
Yeah,
but,
I don't think they can use any Spider-Man characters, but you're right. As Dr. Nagel was explaining, Thunderbolt Ross was definitely involved with once the CIA recruited him from Hydra. That got Dr. Nagel. Thunderbolt was definitely involved because he was involved previously with which we call it. So I think we're going to show him. He's going to show up later on in the show, probably just like we got a surprise cameo at the end of this episode. It's going to show. I think it's definitely probably going to show up in another episode. So speaking of I'm going to get to the end of the episode in a second, but we do need to talk about some of the things that are not part of the meat of the episode. Jhon Walker and Lemar Hoskins, we get 2 scenes with them. They actually we start the episode with him, and before we start the episode, we actually get a commercial, and it just reminded me of all the. I mean, for people watching the live stream, I live in DC. I see a lot of commercials from defense contractors. They're very smiley and nice, but and it just reminded me. It reminded me of that because they show this very smiley, nice commercial, and then this, and you think that this is like a social services program or something like this.
Yeah.
And then you see a truck come up with the same logo and it has police on it, and then he rolls out of it. So that was that whole beginning scene was interesting. What did you guys make of that scene? There was a lot of characterization with him specifically, and also a little bit of characterization with Lemar as well. You get a sense of what kind of man Lemar is, and also what kind of man Jhon is from that scene, and also the next scene.
Yeah, we got what they're trying to establish, that he's doing whatever it takes to get the job done, even if it means cutting corners. Whereas Lemar appears to be, I guess, the angel on his shoulder a little bit, or at least trying to be his conscience and trying to talk him through, and just play, I guess, the other side of things in trying to keep him straight. But yeah, I think more and more we're seeing how obsessive he is and doing what it takes to really make a name for himself, is what it seems like. He seems to be really driven by that, and try to separate himself from Captain America.
Yeah, definitely. When the guy spit in his face, that was definitely warranted, and a lot of the internet was cheering for that to happen because of all that. So, but at the same time, I think that you can definitely see that progression, like you said, Jhon, of him, starting off as like, okay, this is a really big burden on me, but everyone's almost kind of, it's almost like he's sort of almost like trying to. It's almost like a victimization type of thing for him. It's like, woe is me, everyone's attacking me, everyone's saying that I'm not doing the right thing and blah, blah, blah. And it's like this kind of like victimization type of trope that I think that they're trying to play with him. And, you're not going to get any, and then maybe he gets some sympathy, but it doesn't seem as though the internet's going to give him any sympathy or anything like that. But I want to go back to the GRC thing, and it also speaks to a bigger issue about like what is the role of the world, and it does kind of touch upon that a little bit. The idea about multilateralism, about globalism in some ways, and how it interacts with today's society of how, we are in the middle of a pandemic. What is the role of globalism and what is the role of multilateralism in terms of, the power brokers of certain countries, distributing, say, vaccines and things like that. So there's definitely a lot of parallels to be made with GRC and say any type of NGO that's out there in the world.
Yeah, I definitely have more to say about GRC when I get to Karli and her in the Flag Smashers, but I do want to talk about Jhon and Lemar a little bit. So, I think you're right that there's definitely a lot of pressure on him. Actually, before I get into Jhon and Lemar and the fact that people and the character, I will say these are fictional characters. They're people on the internet that are taking their hate of the character too far, and they have been sending death threats to Wyatt Russell. So people should stop that.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yes,
people
should.
People should stop that. That's ridiculous. These are fictional characters. We get passionate about this stuff, but it's ridiculous. The character the character is annoying. You can hate the character, but Wyatt Russell is just an actor.
And he's playing him well. That's why we hate him.
Exactly. So putting that aside, I will talk about why I hate John Walker, the character. So like, I understand that he has a lot of pressure on him, but I also get the sense that the character himself, he hasn't failed at much of anything in his life. And he's had a very privileged life. So he's pushing morality a lot, and he's pushing beyond where he would common sense a lot. Lemar is trying to reel him in because he knew him before he was Captain America. He was been his friend since high school, right? He's trying to be the other person, like you said, the angel on his shoulder. But I think in John's mind, he's like, you're not the one with the shield. You don't have the real pressure. So I'm going to do what I need to do. I'm going to go through whatever I need to do. And you can see just by his choices, he's not suited to be Captain America, because it's not. I don't think that anyone could be as super wholesome as Steve, but it's not a choice that Sam would make. You can see why he's more suited. I don't even think it's necessarily a choice that Bucky would make, even though he made some questionable choices, bringing out Zemo at the beginning of the episode.
So it's a stark contrast to, if you remember, Captain America: The First Avenger, when Dr. Erskine handpicked Steve Rogers in the first place, and Steve said, "Why me? Why me of all people?" And he says, "Because basically, I don't think he called him the little guy, but he fights for the little guy, right?" And he said, "Don't ever forget that." And that's a stark contrast to John Walker. And I know in the comic books they try to do the same thing, but here we're seeing it played out a little bit longer and bits and pieces as well, as we see the little morsels of his personality, his character, his characteristics, that shows that he is definitely not Steve Rogers. And like you said, because of his perhaps privileged upbringing, life, or just his stance in the world, and maybe it sounds like he was like the high school star for a while there on his sports teams or whatever. And that was not Steve at all. He was always the little guy. And so that is a nice comparison to see that, hey, this is definitely not our Captain America. And as for Bucky, it almost sounds like they're planting the seeds there for when he picks up the shield himself, like he did in the comics. But he's driven by his loyalty to Steve, and loyalty in being better, wanting to be better because of the standard that Steve Rogers set for him, and the loyalty that he showed, reciprocated. Actually, he showed first, and now he wants to reciprocate Steve's loyalty and his belief in him, his faith in him that he's actually a good person, he's a friend. Right. So maybe they're setting that up. As soon as I saw or heard him say that part, it made me think, oh, shoot, is he going to try to take up the shield first right away? And then eventually Sam gets it. So maybe this is a lesson all forming for Sam to say, you know what, you are worthy of this shield. So stop fucking it off.
I don't think that Sam doesn't think that he's worthy of the shield. I think what Sharon said about the shield has something to do with it. I think seeing what happened to Isaiah has something to do with it. I don't think that he thinks that he's unworthy of it. I think that he's dubious about wearing the flag of the United States, given what the flag of the United States has done, not just to people that look like him, but around the world. And I think that doing that is an easier thing to do for a white guy than it is for a black person. So I think that is why he's a little dubious about it. And I think that's why he didn't want to necessarily take up the mantle. And probably I wasn't sure what he meant on the plane about he should have destroyed it, because I don't think everyone is chasing, unless he's talking about the shield as a symbol for a super soldier, and everyone's chasing the super soldier thing because Cap was a super soldier. That's the only thing that I can think of is why he would. But I don't think destroying the shield would stop people from looking for a super soldier serum. The other thing I was thinking about when you were talking, Jhon, is that I think the difference between John Walker breaking the rules and Steve breaking the rules, because I know someone watching this might say, well, Steve broke the rules too, but he broke it for like a higher calling or higher moral calling, right? I think
correct.
John Walker is breaking the rules because of his pride. Like he doesn't want to look bad. He wants everyone to actually accept him as Captain America. And
self-interest.
Yeah. So there was a big difference there. And you saw Steve wrestle with his conscience, wrestle with whether or not he should go against the government, or wrestle against whether or not he should go against the team. So I think there's a big difference there. So now we have speaking of the GRC, we need to talk about Karli a little bit in the Flag Smashers. They had two scenes in this as well, just like John Walker and Lemar. I thought that her last act in this episode was a weird escalation. I understand that her aunt, was it her aunt or someone died? I don't know. It was a family member died, but
mentor or somebody. Yeah.
But I was actually liking her up until that act, and it feels like something that a writer did, so you think that she's a bad guy. Like they when you really like a bad guy, and then they have them kill someone, and you're like, they have to stop her now because she killed someone. It didn't seem to naturally flow from how she was characterized previously. So I don't know what you guys think. I have some thoughts that I can get there if I fill in some blanks that weren't actually said on screen, but that's bad writing. I shouldn't have to fill in that many blanks. But what do you guys think? What did you guys think about the Flag Smashers and Karli's scenes?
Yeah,
you said it, Nathan. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just feel as though definitely it's like you said, Nathan. It just didn't feel right. It seemed as though she was going in. She stole the serum, kind of like out of some type of righteousness, and then like it seems as though going into the few episodes, she was fighting some righteous cause, and then all of a sudden the righteousness then turned into killing people. And maybe there is some sort of story where that individual can go to that point where where that line is being crossed, and there could be that type of justification in terms of, in her mind, of why they did what they did. But yeah, it just definitely didn't seem right whether or not you could sympathize with her, or whether the death of that family member put her over the edge. Who knows? So yeah, I think that there are definitely some questions as to the motivations, maybe some blurred lines, or it could be just the fact that it was just a natural progression of her turning into that individual.
So yeah, I think there was either issues with the direction, the acting, or the writing here, because you after the director said this was your aunt, but she raised you, and what you're feeling now, your comrade is going to say maybe you should mourn, and you need to act like you're going off the rails, or you're act a little more irrational than you have in the previous scenes. Then that I would have sold me that, okay, she's mourning and she's acting irrationally, she's acting differently than we saw her in the previous scenes. But either the director didn't tell her to do that, or the director told her to do that, and she wasn't able to do that as an actor. Or they just should have wrote an extra beat or so to explain her progression. So there's a failure on one of those levels there, and I don't know where because I'm not, of course, behind the scene. I don't know where the failure was, but it seemed like a weird escalation because she seemed like the same person in the scene at the GRC headquarters when they were casing the place as she did previously. I mean, she had a loss, and it was definitely a loss that they mentioned in that scene when she was talking to her comrade, but she didn't seem affected. Mm-hmm. She seemed. I mean, on mission. She's talking about being a teacher and stuff like that, but she didn't seem unwound or unhinged. So it was weird to me. And what, like I said, I could write some things. I could say, I could say that if you think about the GRC, and this is what I was alluding to earlier when I said it, the GRC is basically trying to put the world order back. And we talked about this in previous episodes. The GRC, the blip would have disrupted all the political structures of the entire world. As we live in this country, as we live in this world right now, there's enough food to feed everyone in this planet, but they're not being fed. There's enough housing for everyone, but and we saw this at the beginning of the pandemic. People would just started to house people that were homeless and vacant housing and stuff like that. Now, powers that be keep people from living in housing and keep people from eating. But if you lose half of the population, maybe the political structures couldn't. It was untenable to keep people from taking over housing or taking what they needed, and they just squatted in places, and their lives were a lot better than they were before the blip, and you can imagine them becoming they're displaced now. There's all these displaced settlements. This is what we heard in this episode. There's all these displaced settlements. Now they're refugees. Everything has been taken away from them. So I could understand if you have that sort of a backstory. Because she hasn't been playing this on her face or the desperation in her face over the last couple of episodes. If you have that sort of backstory, you can understand her escalation. But I think that needs to be explained a little bit more. We need to see one of these displacement camps because all we saw was the woman dying, but we didn't see if it was like a squalid condition and things like that. Because I assume there are a lot of people coming back and taking back their property. Taking back their houses, taking back their whatever that people settled into for 5 years is a long time.
Yeah, yeah.
So
it's like
it happened in Spider-Man. I mean, she reappeared, and basically she was in the same house, but the people that were there were like, "What's going on?" Yeah. So you can see that.
Yeah, and Spider-Man was a more jokey show.
Yeah, I think we're gonna.
Oh yeah, definitely. This is definitely more serious than Spider-Man.
Yeah, yeah. So we heard
we're gonna get a future episode that explains all this.
Yeah, we get Aunt May's part of that. Oh, someone was living in her house, but we don't get the other side of that. The people that were thrown out of her apartment because she, because I mean I don't know if she owned the apartment because there you can definitely own an apartment in New York. I mean most people don't, but so yeah. And then we're coming up on an hour. We're coming up on an hour, so we should probably stop the stream soon. The last thing in this episode is I think they go and they track down Karli's the relative that died. So they go to the city, and I forget what city it was where she died.
It's in Latvia, I know.
Latvia, okay.
Yeah, Latvia.
And Zemo and Sam go into the displacement camp and. Then Bucky hangs back, and he because he notices something, and we see we see a visitor from Wakanda. So what do you guys make of that, and what do you think is coming up?
They're gonna probably duke it out. He's gonna try to stop her from going after Zemo. I mean, she has a legitimate reason. All of Wakanda does. After all, Zemo took out the king in Civil War. So, and at the same time, it's probably going to show their familiarity with each other that we didn't get in the movies. After all, Bucky was there in Wakanda for a while there while he was getting deprogrammed or getting that stuff out of his head, all those commands, brainwashing commands. And at the same time, that's where he was most at peace. And I'm sure he became familiar with a lot of the people there, especially especially her. What is her name?
Ayo.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So, yep. So I remember her from Civil War.
I don't know if she showed up in Black Panther. Did she show up in Black Panther?
I didn't see her in Black Panther, but she was definitely in Civil War. She was tall. That's all I remember. Mm-hmm. She was towering over Scarlett Johansson.
Maybe she was at the very end. Maybe she's one of the Dora that are out in the field, like because they have spies. The Wakandans in the comic books, the Wakandans have spies throughout the entire world. So maybe she's one of the ones, just like Lapito's character in Black Panther. She was a spy in Nigeria, so maybe she's one of the ones that are deployed to the field. So maybe that's why she was out. But yeah, it should be interesting when we in the next episode what their relationship has been, because he was there for 2 years, and I know he was frozen when he came there immediately, but I assume he wasn't frozen for the entire time, because when we see him again, he's in a surrounded by kids in a hut.
Yeah.
So
with no arm.
So,
I'm wondering if they are going to pay a visit back to Wakanda as well. So that would be something interesting to kind of fill in that backstory of those 2 years in which he was in Wakanda. Maybe there could be some flashbacks as well to his time in Wakanda, because it's really one of the points of he found his peace there, and what did he do to find his peace? So that would be very interesting if they explored that in the next episode.
Yeah, I don't know if they're gonna go. We'll see if they go back to Wakanda. That'd be awesome if they did. I think that it adds some complexity because Chadwick is dead, and are they going to mention him? Does he show up? It's possible that this was his last role, because we all thought that Ma Rainey was his last role, and this might have been his last role, and then Marvel doesn't say, because Marvel can't say things like this because it would be secret. So I don't know how if they go back to Wakanda, we'd have to deal with the Black Panther.
Right.
So yeah, I'm definitely interested. I mean, they left it on a cliffhanger where you definitely want to know what's going to happen next.
So it was a nice jaw-dropping moment. As soon as the camera panned, you're wondering, who is it? What are these Pokeballs that he's looking for?
Yeah, it didn't occur to me until you go back and you say, oh yes, that's definitely Wakandan tech, because they used the beads that they had. That it was basically
Yeah. As soon as he turned around and see her, I'm like, oh, that's what's her name?
Yeah.
So it was a nice little geek moment there too.
Definitely.
All right, so I think that we covered everything, but we are definitely interested to hear what you guys think. Comment down below, like and subscribe, and we will see you guys next week. We will be on Facebook next week, so I will see you next time. See you next time, guys. Bye.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye.